Hi guys, I'm Olivia and I'm here to give you my November wrap-up video. First of all, I'm going to start with my life update because some of you said that you were missing my life updates in my wrap-up. So I am going to include my life update in this one. Okay, so in November I had what is called a reading week at university, so I got the chance to go down to London to visit my sisters for a whole week. I got to see my aunt, I got to see my grandmother, and I also got to see my mother, who flew over from the Netherlands to London for a weekend just to do some shopping and some stuff like that. So it was really nice to see her as well. We all had some really nice times together, you know, family bonding. I finished watching the series that I love called Baby Daddy. I just find it so hilarious. Ultimately one of my favourite comedy series, and I finished it like season 6, end of it, all of it. It was a really sad day. I was like, what should I watch next? So I started to watch Death Note, an anime that I asked people on Snapchat like, what anime should I watch next? And they all said Death Note. Well, not all of them, but that was the majority vote. So I watched Death Note, which was really good at the beginning and then really bad at the end, but I'll explain that in a like video discussion about Death Note. So that's my watching life. I got my hair done, you can see it now, it's kind of like a high ponytail style. It's a mix of purple and black, so even though it looks black, there is still purple in it, just not all purple like it used to be. I went to the Humanities versus Sciences bar crawl here at the university. It was alright. It wasn't like the most fun, wasn't the worst fun, but it was a nice time. Humanities, oh, I think they decided it was a draw. Humanities didn't win this time, but I have been struggling a lot with, you know, adult life things, so like things like opening a bank account, getting my national insurance number, and I finally got those like admin stuff sorted out, which just makes me very happy. And I also went to the Literature Society Christmas dinner. It was in November, a bit early because of the fact that we've only got 1 week in December of university and everybody's doing their Christmas events then, so the Lit Soc did it a bit earlier. It was great to eat a meal that I hadn't cooked and washed up myself. Like, although I really do enjoy cooking, I don't mind washing up, it is kind of nice to be able to enjoy a meal of something that you don't usually cook. Like, even though some people cook burgers all the time, I never cook a burger, so when I go out I love to eat a burger. I had a very good burger and I had the most delicious banana honeycomb cheesecake for dessert. It was so good. Now let's get onto the books, because I did read quite a few books in the month of November. I read 8, I believe. Wrong, I read 7 books. So let's get right on started with the books. Okay, one of the first books I finished was In the Midst of Winter by Isabel Allender. This was my first Isabel Allender book and it was on my TBR. It's about these 3 characters who all meet after a series of unfortunate events. I always think of the books when I say that. And basically one of them is an American man, Richard, who's kind of old and, you know, very American, likes routine. Then we've got Evelyn, who is an illegal immigrant. And we've also got Lucinda, who's either from Chile or Guatemala, the other one that Evelyn's not from. And they've all got their own histories, and we get to see their histories into what made them who they are now. And then as well as that, they're kind of dealing with a car crash and some like dead bodies that they did not think they would have to be dealing with as well. Isabel Allender is an author that I know is very celebrated, and I wanted to try one of her books, and I have to say I can understand why she's so celebrated, because in this book there's just so much diversity and so much history implanted in the book while it's still fiction, while it's still a good read. I would not recommend this to plot-driven readers. Isabel Allender, she writes for character-driven readers. It's a good thing I am a character-driven reader, and I really just liked hearing about the South American history, especially as I studied the history of Mexico and Chile last year as part of my IB history course. So to see it kind of fictionalized and get like not the overview of all the events happening, but like a personal account of how it could have affected civilians' lives was really interesting. Then I read A Small Place by Jamaica Kincaid, which was sent to me by another blogger who blogs at Literary Flits. I'll leave a link to her blog down below. Thank you very much for sending me this one. I really enjoyed reading this essay. I just like flipped through it in like less than an hour, and it made me think about Antigua and colonization in a way that I hadn't thought about it. Like, although I did know about colonization and what this means for a country, she really talks about the colonization, the effect of colonization years after it's happened, years after independence, because it still has an impact on society, and I thought it was very intriguing to hear all her thoughts on this. And the next thing I had to read for my course was Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. If you want me to tell you what this book was about, I really can't. I just had a seminar on this book where I discussed this book intellectually, and I still kind of had zero idea about what this book means. I can tell that it's got very rich language. I can tell it's about a very deep, difficult topic, and I can also, well, I know that English is not the author's first language, but his English sounds like impeccably intriguing and exquisite. It's, even though it's 150 pages long, it's a very dense text. A lot happens in that short amount of time, and there's a lot of imagery, and it kind of makes it, it's almost kind of like it's magical realism, but it isn't. So it's really hard for me to explain this book. It's not that I don't like it even, it's just that I don't understand it. Do you ever read a book and you just feel like you don't understand anything? That is me right now. Then the next book I read was A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. Somebody on Instagram, Dana Frederick, I'll leave a link to her Instagram down below, told me I was going to enjoy this play, and she was correct. I really did enjoy the play. Again, I read it in one sitting while I was getting my hair done, and I just thought it was so advanced for its time because it was written 1800s, at some point towards the end of the 1800s, but it's very much about feminism and independence for females, and also the economic situation within a household and how that can affect relationship. And you can just tell that Ibsen knows what he's doing, and he's just got such an advanced mind, and you can see that in the play, and I just thought it was a brilliant play. I absolutely loved it. Then I finally finished Kokoro by Natsume Soseki. I'd started it another month, then got totally distracted by other books and then went back to it. But I do have to say I really did enjoy reading this one. It's a translated novel. It was originally written in Japanese. It's set in Japan, and it's kind of about the crossing of eras in history, because you've got the sensei, who is this teacher who is talking to the student, and the sensei is from the Meiji era and the student is from the era that comes after that. And I did study Japanese history also as part of my IB history course, so I did know a bit about the Meiji era, what that stood for, and I hadn't really, you know, researched into the following era, but you can see this disillusionment that someone feels about, you know, when your era is over, how do you fit into this new society? And it deals with a lot of difficult topics, especially the one of suicide, and it's kind of doing it in a way that somehow I don't think I'll ever be able to fully grasp it, because it goes back to traditional Japanese times of when, you know, you commit suicide as an honour. And I mean, although I can research it, I can see how people would do that, I'll never be able to fully understand, but I think this novel helps me get there a bit more. I also said in my TBR that I wanted to read some tales from Chaucer because I had to for studies, and I did read some of the tales in Chaucer. We read tales like The Wife of Bath tale, we read The Miller's Tale, The Reeve's Tale, and we also read another one that I cannot think of right now off the top of my head. But we read quite a few of the tales, and you know, the English is still Middle English, but it's easier to read than Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, so I didn't mind the Middle English that much. And also, on top of that, oh, we also read The Merchant's Tale, that's the one. Also, I was just blown away by this book, just because I was not expecting it. You know, when they tell you you're going to read a classic, you think you're going to get, like, knights and courts and courtly romance, but Chaucer doesn't do any of that. He writes fabuloso, so you get stories where, you know, people get pokers put up their buttholes and people kissing people's butts, and it's just a whole load of obscene, funny stories, but they have an underlying deeper meaning. It's very satirical in nature. He's really making comments on things in the medieval ages, but then if you think about it, they kind of somehow still apply today, which is just so backwards if you think about it, but hey, this is the society we live in. So I found that very entertaining. And all of that aside, in the last book that I read was Citywide by Santina Hassel. I actually thought I was going to make it throughout a whole month without reading a Santina Hassel book, but I failed towards the end because Citywide came out, and that is a short story collection following the secondary characters in the Five Boroughs series. If you read the Five Boroughs series, you'll know that the secondary characters are very important to the series, and you know, everybody wanted to know more about them, so Santina Hassel obliged and wrote some of their stories. So we get the rest of Chris's story that started in a short called Third Rail last month, and he's kind of developing in a poly relationship, so you get to see that. Really love that story, I thought it was great. Then the other short story that we get is between Tonya and Meredith, and this was the first FF short story or any type of romance that I read before. I thought it was alright. I really don't have much more to say, I just thought it was alright. It was my first FF. I should probably try more, but I just found it alright. Then I also read the short story between Angel and Stephanie, which was the first time I read a Santino Hassel straight romance where it was a male-female romance, and I absolutely loved it. I really loved it, like a lot. Okay, so those are all the books that I read in the month of November. Please stick around because my December TBR will be coming up very, very soon. I'd love to know in the comment section below what your favourite read in November was, or you know, how many books did you manage, and I'll see you next time. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and hit that notification bell if you want to be updated every time I have a new video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye. And then we've got Evelyn, no sorry, another one. Oh, this one is satirical in its theme. It's very thematically satirical and satirical in nature. From, oh, I'm gonna get my countries wrong. I think she's an illegal immigrant from Chile. I might... No, that can't be. So I'm going to include it in this one. Let's close the window.